It's waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Dutch. I'm your host, Mains. My colleague in a danger zone in Rainford is Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Ludicrous, Usher, Outcast. Where are they all from?
The same place where Maroon 5 are from?
Yeah.
That'd be Atlanta.
Yeah.
Or Hotlanta. Or allegedly one of the greatest nights you can spend if you're a basketball player. I've been informed by Jalen Rose on multiple podcasts.
So you have these options to play your Super Bowl halftime show, and you pick Maroon 5. Halftime shows are boring enough as it is, without the, as Mark Sess would call it, vanilla milk toast variety.
I think you need to understand, Neil, that the NFL is conservative with a small c. I don't really see Ludacris meeting said requirement. But there you go. That's just me. I'm sure Maroon 5 will be absolutely bang average, and I look forward to not watching it.
Yep, that'll be a pleasant half an hour chat with whoever I happen to be watching it with. Probably Charles, let's be honest. Half an hour chat, discussing ineptitude from the first half. But I digress.
Absolutely, Neil, absolutely. So, normal show. We're going to be plugged into the mains. We've got two topics that we're going to discuss this week. We won't be discussing Josh Gordon's trade to the Patriots. What we will say on it is, I'm perfectly comfortable that the Browns have decided that they've had enough. What you shouldn't then do is trade him to the Patriots, because if it works, you look really bad. We're then going to get on to Dutton's Fancy Darling and Loser of the Week, and then we're going to finish this bad boy up with our DraftKings Daily Fancy Team of the Week. Big 2-0 for Mains last week with the team that he picked out. You did the similar one. I think you would have won quite a bit of money last week. I'm gonna be brutally honest. I'm not comfortable about my team this week. Don't like it. Didn't like many of the matchups and became a bit uncomfortable towards the end.
Yeah, your team makes me sick.
It's not good, is it? And looking back on it, could have done better here. But anyway, we digress. Let us plug ourselves into the mains and give you our two things to discuss this week. So Neil, you're older than me, but in NFL watching circles, I am older than you.
Yes.
I am a watcher from around 1990, and Neil is a watcher from about 2001.
November 19th, 2000.
There we go, 2000, yeah. So the 2001 Super Bowl was your first. When I was brought into the NFL, the old adage was you've got to establish the run. Got to establish it. So that's why you had to get a top quality running back, the likes of which in the time that I was watching it, the likes of Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, eventually moving on LaDainian Tomlinson. So that's why you can see the teams have gone for players like Leonard Fournette, Saquon Barkley, and even Ezekiel Elliott. The problem is, the people who came up with those ideas are old and seem to have missed the memo that actually what you need to do is throw them first and second down, so you have a really short third down. The Jags played the Patriots without Fournette and were infinitely better on offense than they would have been. They were actually saved from themselves. Saquon Barkley broke a record, Neil, this week for most receptions for the least amount of yards in NFL history. That's 14 receptions for 80 yards. Ezekiel Elliott was fine, but his team aren't very good. And I think if you think now as an NFL GM, you need a top running back to win in the NFL, I think you need to be fired. Now, my friend Symes, who's been on the show before, listens to the show, thinks that I'm obsessed with firing people. It's not that I'm obsessed with firing people. I'm obsessed with people getting away with incompetence. So I don't believe that you should be incompetent and allowed to keep your job. I don't think that's a big thing to say. I believe that if I was incompetent at my job, I should be fired.
The notion of the popular wisdom is, if you establish the pass, your play action, works. Well, okay, riddle me this. Seattle Seahawks haven't had to run the ball for 2 years, but the best quarterback in terms of on play action in the NFL is Russell Wilson. I'm waiting. This is why teams, and as I say, and we hinted at it last week. Please tell me why Le'Veon Bell is worth $20 million a year when James Conner is doing just exactly the same. Please tell me why Leonard Fournette is so essential to Jacksonville that they look like the greatest show on turf when he's not there. Please tell me why running the ball is so important that the teams most committed to it, the Buffalo Bills, the Arizona Cardinals, the New York Giants, are all 0-2. Please tell me again why running the ball is important. No, you can't, because, to quote friend of the show, Denny Carter, running backs don't matter.
Running backs used to matter, Neil, and that is fine. It's perfectly competent to say that running backs used to matter. Then again, in our type of football, so did the left half. That doesn't exist anymore. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a talented running back. What I'm saying is you shouldn't be spending a top 5 draft pick on said running back, because there are multiple places where you can get a good running back who can do a serviceable job in an offense designed to do so. The leading rusher in the NFL right now is who, Neil?
Matt Breida.
Who is who, Neil? That's right. He's a running back for the San Francisco 49ers. You'd be surprised to understand that there's a running back whose head coach is a Shanahan, is leading the NFL in rushing. That's weird. That almost never happens. Oh, wait. That happens every time a Shanahan's a head coach.
The top 10 rushers in terms of yards are Matt Breida, Joe Mixon, Philip Lindsay, Lamar Miller, James Conner, Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, Isaiah Crowell, Saquon Barkley, and Tevin Coleman. So there's 3 first-round picks, and then what? Philip Lindsay's an undrafted free agent, for Christ's sake. It's worth noting that the leading rusher in the NFL, Matt Breida, has 184 yards on 22 rushing attempts. That 184 yards is nowhere near the top 10 in terms of receiving yards. There's a reason why. Because it's so much more efficient to pass the ball.
Although at this moment in time, I want to go to almost 1.5, and I know that we do a DraftKings, and I know it does PPR, but I wish to call death upon PPR as three of the top 11 most receptions in history for running backs happened last week. Saquon Barkley 14, Chris Thompson 12, and Christian McCaffrey I think 11.
14.
Oh, he was 14 as well. Sorry, apologies. What do all of those 3 teams have in common?
They lost.
They all lost. Chris Thompson and Christian McCaffrey are receiving leaders 2 and 3 in terms of receptions in the whole NFL. No PPR. No, stop. You're not allowed it anymore. 14 receptions for 80 yards shouldn't win you your fantasy matchup week.
Do you want to know who the most anti-PPR player in the NFL is? With 275 yards on 9 receptions, Deshaun Jackson.
But Neil, that's the definition of Deshaun Jackson. If you looked up, as I will now call him, NJR, in the dictionary, there would be a definition of him going deep and usually being overthrown by Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Neil, let's get on to the second, plugged into the mains, and it's the obvious one. Dear NFL, it's time to talk about kickers. So, here in the UK, we have a couple of sports. They're called rugby. We have them in league and union, or as we call them, posh
Ruggers.
and non-posh. In the union version, which is played at the Twickers, with the Ruggers and Tarquin and all the rest of his conservative mates.
Alistair and Farquhar at the wine bar.
Exactly. They kick through sticks all the time for 3 points. They're not directly in front of said sticks, and they have an infinitely better success rate than NFL kickers. This week, NFL kickers missed 19 kicks, 12 field goals, and 7. That's right, 7 extra points. What are we playing at here?
Well, if running backs don't matter, kickers certainly don't. So here's the hot scoop, Minnesota. Don't draft them. If you can't find a competent kicker as an undrafted free agent, then you need to fire your scouting department. But you've made yourself look stupid by drafting one. So literally by attaching any sort of draft value, they have to be perfect. Because you've seen what happens. As soon as they start missing them, you fire them. Well, you're going to give away an awful lot of money firing kickers you've drafted rather than picking them up as undrafted free agents.
One of the most reliable kickers in the NFL is now in Minnesota. That was Dan Bailey. What I don't understand is like how you think not just using a draft pick on Carlson and not picking up Dan Bailey in the first place is a good idea. There's a reason Adam Vinatieri's still got a job, like, because they're reliable. But I'm going to be honest with you now. Like, NFL, you need to come to the UK. There are lads playing second division rugby union at Fly Half who you could give infinitely more money to and would make infinitely more kicks. I'll be brutally honest. I don't care what anyone says, and I guarantee it. 40 and in, I would never miss. Can't be proven wrong or right. Neil,
only by doing it would you prove yourself wrong.
Exactly, so. Absolutely. So that's it. That's it for the plugged into the main section. Let's go fancy heavy now, Neil, and let's talk darlings and losers. And first of all, let's talk about your fancy darling.
Hello, darling.
Well, he's not just my fantasy darling. He is the darling of the NFL. It is everyone's favourite Conor McGregor lookalike, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, he torched the Eagles. He taught the Eagles an absolute new one. But I couldn't be mad because it's Ryan Fitzpatrick dropping back, de-gaffing to the max and just throwing bombs.
Do you know what I love?
Throwing them well.
Do you know what I love about Ryan Fitzpatrick? Is Ryan Fitzpatrick is in without a shadow of a doubt the greatest contract year player in the history of the NFL. Look at every year that Ryan Fitzpatrick was about to be put to bed out of a contract, and you will see one of the greatest NFL performances of all time. Oh, look, Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't in a contract next year. Oh, look, Ryan Fitzpatrick's team's gone 10-6.
Just through 2 games, he's got 819 passing yards. He's attempting 4.5 deep ball attempts per game. He's got 8 passing TDs. He's also got 13 carries, which is second among quarterbacks. The Steelers' defense is a hot mess. They can't stop a runny nose. They're allowing 31.2 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Obviously, that's slightly inflated because Patrick Mahomes tore them apart last week. But we've seen what Fitzpatrick's going to do is pretty much what Mahomes did. And could you make the case that if it's not better, Fitzpatrick's receiving core is at least on par with what Mahomes has?
Oh, he's got Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson, NJ. I'd be going to say, Neil, just so for people who aren't sure, when the Eagles drafted him, Neil declared he was next Jerry Rice. Not quite. Very good player. Not quite Jerry Rice. But anyway, those 2 players are literally designed for Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know, and they're not. Do you know who they're not designed for?
James Winston.
And that's not against James. They're just not designed for James Winston.
The difference between the adjusted yards per attempt figure for Deshaun Jackson from Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick is absolutely ludicrous. I think it's something like 6 yards from Jameis, 14 yards from Ryan Fitzpatrick. which is probably why Deshaun Jackson's come out and said, "Oh, you can't drop Fitz."
I think, and I would like to say this to directly to Charles Dagnall, NFL lover and a TMS legend. You are welcome. Literally, you can't be more welcome, because me and Neil couldn't have ran further away from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. Literally, it's the furthest we've ever run away, because usually one of us spoils your team's season. Neither of us did this year. Guess what? You're 2-0.
You're welcome.
Come see me for salary incentives to continue this prerogative going forward. Neil, but not everyone can be as happy as Ryan Fitzpatrick wearing Deshaun Jackson's clothes. We've got to have a fancy loser. Let's find out who it is.
We could say anyone on the Arizona Cardinals, but let's really highlight one, and that's David Johnson. Chances are, if you took David Johnson, you took him one of the first 4 picks. How's that working out for you? He has 0.72 fantasy points per opportunity, which is, a combination of targets and carries. That is the 47th highest among running backs. He has evaded 2 tackles this season. The big thing about David Johnson, of course, is that he was, an excellent receiver. Well, his catch rate at the moment is less than 55%, and he's dropping 18.2% of his targets. So, I'm sorry, I don't want any part of this offense, even Larry Fitzgerald, is toxic at the moment, because their offense is that bad, unimaginative, and it's being held hostage by the fact that literally, if you look at the next gen charts for David Johnson runs, oh God, get him outside the tackle box, please. Stop running him into the line, please. What are you doing, Mike McCoy, you clueless git? Oh, we might try him in the slot. That'd be lovely. Yeah, try something. The Bears, who the Cardinals are playing this week, are allowing 10.7 fantasy points per game to running backs. That's 32nd out of 32. JJ Zacharyson on his 15 Transactions podcast said, if you've got David Johnson, hold him or look to see what you can get for him, but certainly don't try and buy him.
It's almost like David Johnson needed a competent offensive coordinator / offensive head coach who came up with interesting plays to get him in space to allow him to do what he does best.
Who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought it? Also, I know it's only 2 weeks in, but let's be honest. Why is Sam Bradford playing?
Oh, God.
Just that experiment doesn't need to exist anymore, because you're not very good. So you may as well play Josh Rosen. What's the point?
If you don't think Rosen's ready, just put Glennon in. Anyone but Bradford. He looks terrible. He's not being protected particularly well. But when he does get a chance to throw, stop floating them.
Has he ever been great, though? And has he ever been better than all right?
Well, I'm told he can make all the throws.
When?
Yeah, but he can't make them very fast. And they just die. It's literally how they're not all intercepted. It must be defenders watching it going, pretty. But, honestly, no, end this.
Sam Bradford's got the anti-Patrick Mahomes arm, is what you're trying to tell me?
Well, as I say, the last time I saw something as powerful as Patrick Mahomes' arm, it was blowing up Alderaan.
It's pretty special. I just see Patrick Mahomes' arms and see old school draft people. Do you ever watch the Droopy cartoons? Where the wolf starts banging the table and his eyes popping out of his head, tongue rolls down. That's like Kuiper and the rest of the boys who love arm strength, just watching Patrick Mahomes, just going, yes, arm strength.
It's his arms. His right arm is a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah, and again, he looks really good when he has a head coach who's really good at scheming offense.
Reed loving it.
It's weird. Anyway, fancy darling Ryan Fitzpatrick, fancy loser. David Johnson and anybody who drafted them in the top 4, which was a lot of people. Let's be brutally honest. Neil, I've already discussed my level of comfort with this, but let's get on to our daily fantasy teams of the week.
Mains and Duds. Daily Fantasy Team of the Week.
Show me the money.
As I said, Neil, last week I was really good. This week I don't like my teams. They're not great. As I said, 137 points on DFS last week. Not bad at all. Well impressed with myself taking the Chicago Bears. Defense, massive 17 points. Can't argue. I mean, Todd Gurley was the easiest pick in Pickville. 32.3 points. Even got a bit of love from Geronimo Allison, 12.4. Not sure it's going to be the same this week, but let's start. Who's your quarterback?
My quarterback is Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Of course it is.
6,000. Pittsburgh Steelers say are absolute sieve at the moment. So I know Fitzpatrick is going to turn back into a pumpkin at some point. I just don't think it's this week.
I mean, that's the thing. I don't think anybody's saying that he won't. He won't turn back into a pumpkin, and it's fine that he will do. But it's fun while it lasts, right? And I think
it's a hoot.
You know, he's fun. Like, I don't think he's ever not been fun. I think he's a fun quarterback to watch. Like, I just do.
But did you know he went to Harvard?
I was aware. Yeah, that was something absolutely on my radar. Like. But there you go. My quarterback, Neil, 5,600. With his army writing a letter to his dearest mother after a victory in the nation's capital. Now plays your Philadelphia Eagles, and it's Captain Andrew Luck. Again, Neil, I don't know if you've seen it. I've watched it far too many times because I'm not sure who to either to be wowed or to scream blame at the defense. Do you see T.Y. Hilton's touchdown in the end, the short 5-yarder?
Mm-hmm.
That's, again, head coach, good offensive scheme, like it. And I also don't know if you know, just so in case you were unaware, Jordan Mills plays on defense for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's not great. Okay, there's no Deshaun Jackson or OJ Howard to not tackle, but T.Y. Hilton and Jack Doyle might get the job done. 5,600 are gone for Andrew Luck.
Yeah, Jordan Mills plays for the Buffalo Bills. Jalen Mills, however, is a cornerback for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Both of them, poo.
Both, yeah, all right. Andrew Luck has 283.4 yards per game in his last 4 versus NFC teams, with an 11-4 touchdown to interception ratio. His projections on the RotoViz game level similarity projections app, his median projection is 19 points, which wouldn't be terrible. However, desperate times calling for desperate measures and all that. In our league of record, I will not be starting Andrew Luck this week because I picked up Patrick Mahomes.
How did we? Mortar under my breath. As my fancy quarterback got 32 points last week, so and also then dressed like his auntie on a Sunday. Gotta love a Cam Newton uniform. Neil, who's your running back one?
Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings. They're for 7,100. They're playing the Buffalo Bills, and let's have your running back.
Yeah. Can I just say I have Dalvin Cook in my league of record. I need him to be better, so any help the Buffalo Bills could give me would be greatly appreciated.
It'd help, obviously, if the Vikings didn't play in an arena league game again.
Yeah, true. My next running back one is a guy picking up the slack from an injured colleague. Last week, 16 attempts for 107 yards, 6.7 a carry. Tevin Coleman. He is 6,400. He's playing the Saints in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I expect him to get just as much volume. And he's playing the Saints, who are not the the greatest defense ever.
See, you can say Mercedes-Benz, and either of these teams could be at home.
Correct.
Tevin Coleman has 5 touchdowns in his last 4 games against the Saints. So he obviously enjoys playing them. As you say, should see increased workload with no Devonta Freeman. There is a worry, of course, that while his touches will go up, he won't have a backfield monopoly, and they will probably work in Ito Smith. But I don't hate the pick for Coleman, to be honest.
I'm 2 for 2. It gets worse after this, people. Who's your running back 2?
Running back 2 is James White, 4,900. He's caught 11 of his 17 targets this season for 111 yards, and the Lions are giving up 36 fantasy points per game to running backs. There has been change in the wide receiver corps for New England. As we say, we're not going to talk about it too much. There will be further change because Julian Edelman will be back next week. But the 2 things that you can rely on are Tom Brady throwing to Rob Gronkowski and to James White.
True. My running back 2, Neil, is the Pittsburgh Steelers have issues. I think we're seeing a massive implosion. But one place they're not having issues at the moment is running back. They're playing the Bucs, who, although, as we've quite rightly pointed out, are scoring lots of points, they are also conceding a lot as well. I expect James Conner to do a serious job this week. James Conner is 7,500.
Leads all running backs with 257 yards from scrimmage. He is where is he? I've lost him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's the 5th leading rusher in terms of yards. 39 attempts, 152 yards for 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I'd say the Bucs did allow 2 rushing touchdowns to the Eagles last week.
Who's your wide receiver 1, Neil?
Mike Thomas, no matter what. 8,900. Thomas has 28 receptions through 2 games. That is the most through 2 games of a season in NFL history. It overtakes the previous record of 26 set by Andre Bad Moon Rison in 1994 with the Atlanta Falcons.
My wide receiver 1 is 8,900. He's had 28 receptions in the NFL this year. He is Michael Thomas, and he is flipping outrageous.
He has 10 plus receptions, 100 plus yards, and a touchdown in each of his last 2 meetings against the Falcons.
He get open, he catch balls, he go for yards.
We like.
Who's your wide receiver 2, Neil?
The best wide receiver in Pittsburgh, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Who are you suggesting that AB should also be traded like that dude did on Twitter?
7,200. Now, through 2 games this season, Antonio Brown has seen 32 targets. Juju Smith-Schuster has seen 26. They have 18 receptions for Brown, 17 for Juju. Receiving yards is 160 for Brown, 229 for Smith-Schuster. But this is where it gets interesting. The average depth of target for Brown is 10.4 yards. The average depth of target for Smith-Schuster, is 5.7. Brown has 332 air yards. Smith-Schuster has 147. So what I read from this is Roethlisberger is trying to get the ball downfield to Brown, but is not connecting with him, whereas he's putting the ball in Juju Smith-Schuster's hands, closest to the line of scrimmage, and letting him work magic. I think Roethlisberger's arm is going. So, with that in mind, I'll go to the person who can do the most damage without having to get further down the field. And that is Juju Smith-Schuster.
Can't really argue with it, Neil. My next pick is a bit of a leap of faith. He had the same. He had the leading. Well, he was joint leader in receptions for the Atlanta Falcons last week, and it's not Julio Jones. It's Calvin Ridley. Yeah.
I hate this.
I know you hate it because you hate Calvin Ridley. I think based on what I've seen from the first 2 weeks, I think he's going to be wide receiver 2 on this team. starting this week. I obviously can't pick Julio because I've already picked Michael Thomas, and then I'd have to pick like me and you as tight end and flex.
You pretty much have.
Yeah, I think he gets 10 plus points, and that's kind of what you're looking for.
I do love weren't the Falcons so much better in the red zone? Yeah, because Sark called those designed runs for Ryan, did he? Yeah.
The design run
Jesus,
where the second one was where he was like a pinball machine. Like,
it was score a touchdown or die. They're your two choices here, Matthew.
Yeah, it was.
But, far be it from me to allow facts to interrupt the narrative that now they're a lean, mean, efficient machine inside the 20. Far be it from me.
Well, I mean, let's be brutally honest, Neil. In week 1, I suggested that the Washington Redskins scored 24 points in four possessions and was all Billy Big Balls. Then realised that the Cardinals stink and we got 9 points against the Colts. Who's your wide receiver 3, Neil?
I've mocked you for Calvin Ridley. I've gone Albert Wilson for 3,600 just because he's playing the slot. Ryan Tannehill loves to go the slot, and in his last 8 starts, Ryan Tannehill is 7-1.
Yeah,
so if he's going to feed Wilson, that's fine. I don't need, as long as I can get my rewards from Michael Thomas and Juju. I don't need Albert Wilson to pull up any trees.
Were we more wrong right now? Although there's a long way to go, so we can still be right. Right now, were we more wrong on Miami or Tampa Bay? Tampa
Bay. I thought they were going to be top 2 or 3 pick, whereas we thought Miami were boringly middle.
Boringly middle, but they seem to be at the moment ruthlessly efficient in the boring middle. No, you know what I mean. In terms of they haven't scored 40 points like the Bucks have. They've just about managed to win a couple of games against some bang average teams. But that's how you finish 8-8, right?
Yeah.
Your job is to beat the Jets and the Titans.
Yeah, they beat the Titans in a 7-hour rain delayed, rain affected game, and then the Jets going to jet against them by throwing away points right at the end of the first half. I'm not ready to crown the Miami Dolphins as anything other than September MVPs.
No, but what I'm saying is that we thought they'd be crap, and they probably still will be, but they're probably going to be higher up in the draft crap now because they've won 2 games that they could quite easily lose.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, did we think they were going to be crap, or did we just think they were going to be boring? Which, to be honest, if you watch them, they are boring.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I need to go back and listen. My wide receiver 3 Neil, it gets even better. His quarterback. Let me get the stat because this is somewhat is not. Trubisky's yards per attempt in the first quarter, after the first quarter, i.e., once Matt Nagy isn't unscripting, it's 4.17, and that's not good. However, Allen Robinson's got a decent average depth of target. He is the best wide receiver. Hopefully, Matt Nagy uses the first quarter to script all the plays to him. They're playing Arizona, who are garbage. So I'm going with Allen Robinson, the second, according to this.
He 10 for 83 last week. It's career high in receptions. He did have a 41% target share. So even if Mitch Trubisky is essentially playing long handoff to him, they are all receptions. They all count. It's just a question of does Patrick Peterson follow him around? In which case, it might. But ultimately, I think Arizona are garbage, so I don't really think it matters.
I love that. I love that the fact that it seems that the Chicago Bears front office have decided they wanted to get back to the 2006 Super Bowl winning team by getting Khalil Mack to be all world and signing Mitch Trubisky for the Rex Grossman role.
Mm. I just want to say this. This is probably one of the best things I've read for quite some time. Jordan Matthews, who re-signed for the Philadelphia Eagles today.
He did.
Big difference between Jordan Matthews now and Jordan Matthews then was he's now a father, because in his own words, there's nothing to do in Buffalo but each other.
Okay. It's tough to argue that. There you go.
Obviously doesn't like barbecue.
Obviously not a massive fan of the Buffalo Sabres NHL team. Neil, who's your tight end?
I'm staying with I was going to say Roddy Doyle, with Jack Doyle. I know he doesn't seem to be doing anything because Eric Ebron has scored a touchdown in each of his first 2 games. But if you actually look, Doyle is running more routes. He's seeing more targets. Eventually, that's going to even itself out. The Eagles aren't terrible against tight ends, but they did get burnt by O.J. Howard last week. And as I say, Andrew Luck is going to look for Jack Doyle. So it's just a question of, his projections aren't great. But if he can get in the end zone, then he's pretty much up on most tight ends, because I don't want to stun anyone, but tight end is a dumpster fire again, despite unprecedented levels of optimism going in. It's shite again.
Yeah, it is. That's why I'm going back to an old faithful sidekick of mine. That's Carl Rudolph. They are playing the Buffalo Bills, as Neil quite rightly pointed out. Last week, 8 targets, 7 receptions, 72 yards.
Arena League.
Pardon?
Arena League.
Kirk Cousins loves a tight end. So I think you just need to get on to embrace that this is going to happen a lot. That he's not necessarily a dump off merchant, but there is times where he will look and think, I'm just going to knock this 8 yards to Carl Rudolph.
I see what you mean, but he had 8 for 7. Phelan still got a large chunk of targets. Stephon Diggs got a large chunk of targets. They still want to run the ball. And Rudolph only had 2 targets the week before. So I don't think they're scheming the offense in the best way to put Kyle Rudolph in position to be Kirk Cousins' binky. That's why I don't like this selection this week.
I think it's tough. I think it's tough for Minnesota in a good way, right? Because you've got a load of offensive skill talent. That's a good thing. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's absolutely situations where one week you're just going to be like, I pick one of the Minnesota lads and it didn't work. So as I said, at the moment I've got Dalvin Cook in our League of Record and he's done absolutely jack. Because every time I look, Kirk Cousins is just setting out some extra set missile as high as he can in the air, and Thielen or Diggs is coming down with it. It's just the way of the world. That
pass to, I think it was Adam Thielen, that he threaded the eye of a needle against the Packers was incredible.
I think if you're a Minnesota fan, you are tremendously encouraged by last week's performance by Kirk Cousins. He didn't win and the kickers and blah and the Clay Matthews. We could talk about all that forever. But what Kirk did, especially in the fourth quarter, you're like, okay, people have told me that he can't really do that, and he actually did it. So
no, okay. You've told me he can't do it.
No, I've seen him not do it.
You say people, no, you.
No, but I've seen him not do it multiple times. But what I'm saying is, maybe if he had Thielen and Diggs, he may have been better. Or, a coach that could scheme in the red zone. I don't know. Weird, I know. But anyway, who's your flex, Neil?
The flex is Corey Clement. I think opportunity seems to be knocking for him this week. He's 4,300. Darren Sproles was a healthy scratch last week. I don't think he's going to be healthy. Jay Ajayi is day-to-day, but it doesn't sound too good for him. Now, Clement's not a workhorse back in the NFL. He is, a change of pace, a good receiving back. But the Eagles like him. They like what he can do in the red zone, and they like the fact that he can catch the ball. So I think he's going to see a larger workload than Wendell Smallwood or Josh Adams, who's been called up from the practice squad. So I think for his price, and I say he scored a rushing touchdown last week, and the Eagles have only thrown 1 touchdown pass, but they've ran for 4 in their 2 games. So I don't think the Colts defense is great. I think it's looked better. It looked better against the Washington, but I still don't think we can say for certain what type of team Washington are.
Absolutely.
So I think Clement will get. He's not going to be. As I say, he's not going to get 25 carries and 10 targets, but I think he'll chip in. I think he'll return value.
I'm going to ask now because we've mentioned the Eagles 3 or 4 times. Is there what's the level of concern, Neil? Or are we just like we won the Super Bowl last year, so it doesn't really matter?
I'm a bit concerned because I think aside from Nelson Aguilar, who has been very, very good, the rest of the options at wide receiver harken back to the bad old days of Pinkston and Thrash. And I'm just a bit concerned that Dallas Goedert hasn't been used. I mean, Zach Ertz has been Zach Ertz, that's fine. But they're not using Goddard. They'd rather use Josh Perkins, who's the third tight end. I think an awful lot of things will change, not straight away on Sunday because 11 is back. So I thank Nick Foles for all he has done. He will live forever in my heart. But I'm glad Carson Wentz is back just because he gives a whole different slant, and hopefully, let's say it is just a blip. Because the defense, aside from big plays, which is a bit stupid, it's like saying, aside from the fella who shot me, I avoided all the bullets. The Eagles did very well. They just gave up 14 points on 2 75-yard pass plays. Other than that, what did they score? They scored 13 points. That's fine. So defense is holding up its end of the bargain. The Eagles just need to make sure they're a bit more efficient and ruthless on when they've got the ball.
True, Neil. True. My flexes playing the Philadelphia Eagles, it's Ryan Grant. Again, I don't really like this, but when you run out of money, you run out of money. He knows how to play against the Eagles. He will have done it multiple times in Washington. I don't know. Yeah, I
have nothing to add.
No, neither do I. 4,100s. Make it out what you will. Who's your defense and special teams, Neil? If it isn't the Minnesota Vikings, I want to know why.
It's the Minnesota Vikings, 4,300. As long as I can, and I put it this way, I will make it a point of doing so. I am targeting the Bills every week.
Question: are they worse than the Cardinals? Because I'm not sure they are, but I think they're better to pick against in a defense, special teams context. Because I think they, at the moment, especially with Josh Allen over Sam Bradford, they're more likely to give up interceptions and pick sixes and whatever. So I understand that, but I'm wondering right now if all the noise around how bad the Bills have been is underselling how bad the Cardinals have been. I
think probably it's just it probably looks worse for the Bills because they were a playoff team, and I know it's not quite the same, because there's lots of changes on the offense, but it's still a playoff caliber defense. I was led to believe, and it's come. They weren't exactly running the K gun there last year. They relied on their defense and their ground game. So I think it's just the fact that they've gone from, a toss of a coin, a flip of the switch of winning one of the worst played playoff games in NFL history. They could have won it, to probably picking at the very top of the draft. I don't know what everyone's expectations for Arizona were this year, but I'm pretty sure that they're not being met as well. I think it's just the fact that we know there are probably weapons in Arizona that could be unlocked maybe by a quarterback change, whereas I think when you look at Buffalo, there's nothing.
Yeah, good point. Okay, let's recap, Neil. Quarterback.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I've gone for Andrew Luck. Running back 1.
Dalvin Cook.
I've got Tevin Coleman. Running back 2.
The People's Champion, Jimmy White.
I've got James Conner. Wide receiver 1.
Michael Thomas, no matter what.
Yeah, I've got Michael Thomas 2. Wide receiver 2.
Juju Smith-Schuster.
I've got Calvin Ridley. Wide receiver 3.
Albert Wilson.
I've got Allen Robinson. Tight end.
Jack Doyle again, save.
I've got Carl Rudolph. Flex.
Corey Clement.
I've got Ryan Grant, and defense and special teams.
Your Minnesota Vikings.
I also have the Minnesota Vikings. That's it, Neil. That's the show. Where can people catch you on the internet this week?
On the internet, I'm at NDutton13. Waiver wire column came out earlier this week. So maybe the players I spoke about are still available in your league. Maybe not. My game level similarity projections articles for quarterbacks and tight ends also came out, and my weekly stats for number fire. There's some little nuggets. They're not, my God, no one's mentioned these, but they are interesting stats, I think, and a few things that you look at and think maybe, I didn't know that. And ultimately, I'm here to educate as well as entertain.
I'm at Mindy7. Combined, we are at waxing_lyrical. If you love the show, rate us, review us, tell your mates, and if we don't see you before, we'll see you for week 4. These top guys are well and truly out.